So I called him up and I said, Dad, would you do me the honor of coming out here and re-enlisting me? And he said, yeah. There's no other country in this world or through history that's like the United States of America. And I want to keep it that way.
Today we're joined by Roger Baker, a U.S. Navy veteran who served from 1980 to 1992, as he shares insights from his life in and out of uniform.
My name is Roger Martin Baker II. I was in the U.S. Navy from 1980 to 1992. I made E5, but when I got out, I was the E4. I was bosun's mate in the U.S. Navy.
Can you tell me a little bit about your family and your early life before service?
Okay, well, I'll try to condense it a little bit because my family life was kind of convoluted. My dad was a Navy captain. Well, he was in the Navy. He spent a lot of time in and out of Vietnam off the coast and everything. We were living in San Diego. Him and my mom divorced when I was about between 6 and 8. Back then, divorce took like 2 years, I guess. So we'd go out to Coronado where he was living, and he'd come pick us up. We'd go out there, and so I was around like the amphibious part of the Navy for a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And then eventually we didn't move. We took a trip to Beeville, Texas, and I had an uncle there on my mom's side. My sister and I have a sister that's 2 years younger than me. We didn't know it, but my mom was pregnant. And so my younger brother, John, was born in Beeville, Texas on Easter Sunday in 1968. So skip ahead a little bit, and my mom married my stepfather. He came to San Diego, picked us up, packed us up, moved us to Corpus Christi, Texas. Shortly after Hurricane Celia, we lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment for a while, eventually moved into a house, and then that house got sold. We were renting it, and it got sold, and then we moved into another house in the same area. So I went to Flower Bluff High School until the 12th grade. I did not graduate, but I did get my GED, and I scored pretty well on my GED. I went into the Navy on the delayed entry program. My stepfather was really abusive, verbally and physically. My dad wasn't around that much. He'd get us in the summers. The last summers before I went into the Navy, because my grades weren't that good, I was punished by not getting to see him. But I did get to go to Italy when I was 16. And so that was a trip. We went around from Frankfurt down through the Bavarian Alps to Aviano Air Base, down to Naples. Got to enjoy Naples for a while, and then went back up through Rome and France and back to Frankfurt and flew home. So again, I guess I got to get back to the Navy part. So I joined the Navy, went in right after my class graduated in 1980. Went to boot camp, and that's where I started my career. I was fed up with school at the time. I was fed up with a lot of things. I'd run away from home a couple times I think the longest I was gone was for a week. And then my mom wanted me back, and she was worried about me and stuff. So, but that was all because of my stepfather. My stepfather, he didn't think I'd make it through boot camp. And so we made a bet of a month's pay. And at that time, a seaman recruit month's pay was $444. It was right before Reagan came in and into office. So, and then we got our pay raise and everything, so it went up a little bit. but we didn't make very much. I know they made a lot less in Vietnam, but we made very little as seamen, recruits, and stuff like that.
Wow. So, were there, that's really interesting. Were
Yeah,
there any family members or friends that inspired you to join the military?
I would say my dad, to an extent, um, and I had an uncle, my that uncle that we went and visited in Beeville, Texas. My uncle Joe, he was a World War II veteran, and he was actually in Pearl Harbor the December 7th of
Wow.
1941, and he was actually sitting on the can when the attack started, and he ran up on deck in his skivvies, underwear for civilians. So that and I don't know, just watching movies and like McHale's Navy and John Wayne movies and things like that. That kind of inspired me. Plus, they were the first ones to contact me after I took my ASVAB test.
Interesting.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah.
What were your goals when you decided to enlist? I know you said you had a bet with your stepfather that you'd be able to achieve it. Did you have any other goals or expectations of what you thought it would be like when you decided to enlist?
My initial goal was to become a gunner's mate. I wanted to learn how to work on guns and shoot them and things like that. Um, Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to the gunners A school for gunner's mate. They have it's called BEE, Basic Electricity and Electronics, I think, if I remember correctly. You go in, they sat you down in front of a computer, and you had to learn schematics without any help. It's like you need to figure out how to connect this stuff, the circuits on a schematic, and you go ask for help, and they just say, go back to your computer and watch it. So I kind of failed out of that. So I went to apprenticeship training and on out to the fleet. But I was second highest in my class at apprenticeship training. I got out to the fleet, asked for destroyers or cruisers, and they sent me to San Francisco and put me on a supply ship. Therein is where my actual career started, as far as my being a bosun's mate, and I soon came to actually enjoy my job there for the most part.
Okay. How many years did you serve?
12, like 12
Okay.
years and 2 weeks or something like that. I don't know. I went in July 17th, got out August 2nd.
What was the in the beginning with basic training? Can you describe your typical day?
Reveille was early. Some mornings, most of the mornings, it was 0500, and get up, shit, shower, and shave, get dressed, make sure our bunks are straightened out, make sure our lockers are locked. Uh, and then we had to do this like real quick. Then we marched to chow, eat breakfast within like 5-10 minutes, march back, and then we'd start our day. Some days we'd march most of the day. Other days we'd have classes like firefighting or basic seamanship or God, I don't remember just the different classes. Has Not hazmat, but working with hazardous materials. They didn't. I don't remember if they called it hazmat back then or not. And then we'd have break for lunch, and again it's quick lunch, and then we'd continue through the day the same thing. Same, it wasn't the same routine every day. And then we get back to the barracks in the evening after after dinner, and our company commander would do some training with us. We'd get our smoke breaks out on the. We had a smoking area outside that was before we came in. or years before they had wash areas. They had in the old wash areas had these stone, uh, huge like sinks. I call it a sink. I don't know what they were called, but and then they had clotheslines out there where the guys used to wash their stuff, and that's where we would be to have our smoke break and our gee dunk. Gee dunk is soda, candy bars, that kind of stuff. If we had money, we could get a soda or a candy bar, have our cigarette. We puffed down a couple cigarettes if we could, and company commander calls back in, and he'd sit there smoke in front of us. It was kind of messed up, but I understand why. He was able to do it. We weren't because we were the ones in boot camp, not him. So Sundays were a little bit different. We're a little more laid back. We got to we went to morning chow a little bit later. It got a little bit more time to eat. Um, but uh, it was just basically constant. Sometimes they get us up earlier. Then we do PT on on a few days a week. We didn't have to run as much as other services do.
Do you remember any of the challenges that you faced during your time in the military, especially initially starting out or even later on?
The time away from home, the 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 time away from home. I got married. I reenlisted in 1984. Was transferred to the USS Enterprise. We got back, and she was on deployment. So I met her in the Indian Ocean. We got back. I ended up getting married shortly thereafter, and so the time away from my wife then, my ex-wife, uh, was kind of a challenge. Um, she had health problems, weren't real serious health problems, but she had health problems, and so that was kind of tough. Although that was the best part. But we got along a lot better when I was in and out underway all the time. Um, the long hours, keeping my mouth shut, that was that was a challenge. You're sitting there, and I got in trouble, and I had to wait an extra 6 months to take uh, an advancement exam because I ran my mouth, uh, because I was getting chewed out for something that I had nothing to do with, and so that was the challenge. Um, but I think the biggest one was the hours, especially when you're underway and we're doing underway replenishments back to back, standing watches, going back out, doing the underway replenishments and uh, things like that. It's just a lot of long hours out at sea.
How did you adapt to military life, especially just starting out and seeing what it's all about and getting into the schedule and early mornings and brief breakfasts and how did you adapt?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. You didn't really have a choice. I mean, it's not like you could roll over and say, like when I was before I joined the Navy, I could roll over and say, Mom, I'm sick. I don't feel good. I don't want to go to school today. She'd check my forehead, see I didn't have a fever, which she let me stay home anyways. Couldn't do that in boot camp or when I got on the ship. They'd call Reveille on the ship, and we had to be out of our racks by. So they call Reveille at 0600. We had to be out by 0615. So it you had to adapt. If you didn't adapt, then you could face getting kicked out, not getting out with an honorable or anything. Uh, and whether you stay in for, some branches are just 2 years, some branches are longer. Like the Navy, my first enlistment was 4 years. Most guys' biggest goal is to get that honorable discharge. Uh, yeah, that's the important thing.
Would you mind sharing some memorable experiences from your service or maybe a particular mission or an assignment that stands out to you?
Well, our first deployment, I was on my first ship. Like I said, it was a supply ship, so we were in the middle of San Francisco Bay taking on ammunition. So what they did is they had to move us out there, bring a barge in, load us full of ammunition. When they did that, they shut down the boilers. Um, so we got loaded, and they went to light off the boilers, and they blew one of them up. So then they had to take all that ammunition back off, haul us to the pier, and fix the hole in this, or fix the boiler, which they had to put a cofferdam on and cut a hole in the side of the ship. So that was kind of interesting. And then on the way out on that that cruise, we got fixed. It took about a month. And on the way out, we uh, went to the Philippines, and after the Philippines, we were going through the Straits of Malacca, and we ran into a Vietnamese refugee boat, and I was able to participate in helping with getting the refugees off that boat and onto our ship via our accommodation ladder. So ladder that's attached to the sides of the ship that lowers down up and down to the water if we need to. It's like when we use our own boats to go in and out out, you know. And out of that, I got my first award, which was a humanitarian award. Just see, I think the most memorable thing though, as a 19-year-old kid, was seeing all the different places. Yeah, you had to work your butt off to get there, but Hawaii, Philippines, Korea, Busan, Korea, Perth, Australia. Where else did we go on our first cruise? Singapore. Uh, those were memorable places. Walking downtown Singapore is kind of amazing. Uh, all the I didn't know it at the time, but they had bootleg music, and you kind of had to buy like an extra copy of a tape because they would die after a few hours of running. Well, not a few, a little bit longer than that, but they would die quickly um, because they weren't really high quality. And that I learned after a couple of days that they were high quality. I didn't know they were bootleg though. So those were highlights of my very first cruise. Shellback initiation. That was that was an experience. What that is when you cross the international date line going uh, from the north part of the Pacific to the southern part of the Pacific, and you become a shellback after you go through an initiation, and that starts at like 300 and goes until you it goes until you get through the all the different stations and stuff. So you're down on your hands and knees crawling across the deck, all your uniform and underwear. Underwear's on the outside, your uniform's inside out, your shirt's on backwards, and they're cracking eggs on you, pouring bug juice, which is Kool-Aid, on you, hot sauce, garbage they've been saving up for a week, uh, hitting you with what they did. They call them shillelaghs, and what that is uh, 1 inch hose, 1 inch fire hose. Cut. They take and save old fire hoses, and then cut them into about 3 or 4 foot sections. And you make your shillelagh. Or the guys would make their shillelagh. I got to make one on my next cruise, and then you just kind of got your butt whooped. It was initiation, it was uh, interesting, and you had to kiss the baby, which is the biggest guy on the ship. They put a cherry or an oyster in his belly, and you had to get it out. They grease him up with lard and see the doctor and they'd squirt bug juice with hot sauce and other stuff in there and crawl through the garbage tube. And the last thing was getting into this big old pool that had all kind of nasty shit. And they'd ask you, "What are you?" And what you had to reply was, I'm a shellback." And once you said that, you were able to get out and go clean up. Well, for 3 days after that, I could still taste all that crap that we went through. But it was a sense of achievement. You made it through this thing, and it wasn't easy. And along with all the other guys that you were with, you accomplished something. So uh, when I was on shore duty at Treasure Island, or yeah, when I was on shore duty at Treasure Island, some things that stand out weren't real nice, but uh, we had a helicopter crash in out just outside San Francisco Bay, killed the entire crew, and we had I don't even know what kind of boat it was, but it was a small like patrol boat, and they used that to go out and pick up the remains and brought them back in. And I was base police at Treasure Island, and we had to escort the bodies from Treasure Island to Oakville Naval Hospital. Well, in our part of escorting them was carrying the body bags from the pier, from where they dropped them onto the pier. They set them onto the pier, they didn't drop them. They set the bodies on their pier, and then we had to carry them to our vans. And the first one I carried, the uh, dude's head had been chopped off or severed, and it was in the bag, but it was just a waterlogged human being is not something that feels. I'm trying to think of the word. It's not. It's not pleasant, I guess. So, and then we'd take him to the morgue at Oakville, and I never had to deal with that kind of stuff before. And so it's memorable. It's not pleasant memorable, but it's memorable. We had a guy die on the shitter. Uh, I don't know how he did it, but when we got there, corpsmen were doing chest compressions with their fingers because they had to. They didn't have a doctor there to pronounce the death, so they had to do the very minimum. But he was already rigor mortis, and he was leaning up against the stall door. His arm was on his forehead. His forearm was up on his forehead, and and he was sitting on the toilet, and he died just like that. And it was kind of like, wow. And when they put him on the stretcher, he stayed like that. And then I volunteered when we do Kuwaiti tanker escorts out in the Persian Gulf. I volunteered for that. Went to Coronado Naval Air Station or Naval Amphib Base. I don't know why I'm saying Naval Air Station, but the amphib base there at Coronado, and I trained with the Special Boat Unit, and we trained to do escorts. So I got qualified on as boat crew and small arms when I wasn't getting seasick because those things bob like crazy. I was having a good time. And we got over there and they shut down the barge quite quickly after we got over there, but it's still, put us into a combat area. I kind of wish we would have stayed longer though and was able to complete the mission.
Did you form any lasting friendships during your time in the military?
I had some that I stayed friends with for a while after they got out, but I lost track of almost everybody. Well, we're such a big country, and I had one of my good friends who was an usher an usher at my wedding. He was Puerto Rican from New York, and we get together and just cut up, and he'd come over to the house, and my ex-wife would cook. he'd help us move, or he'd help us stuff around the house or the apartment. We'd buy him beer and stuff. But yeah, there was people from Corpus Christi where I grew up. There was people from, Wyoming, all over the place. So you lose track with the people, and it's not hard. And it sucks sometimes, because some people you get really close to, and they either lose connection or they die.
Yeah. Understandable. Can you think of any key lessons or skills that you learned from your military service?
I was more of a jack of all trades, and
Yeah.
it's I could paint, I could navigate, I learned weapons, I learned underway replenishment. I can we call it fancy work, which is not tying and stuff. And, if I had the patience, I guess I could sit down and make bracelets and knot tying and all that kind of stuff, knot boards and stuff, and sell it. But yeah, so it's not anything specific for me. Uh, I guess one lesson I did is uh, you want you want the best for your child, and I want my child to grow up. I wanted my child to grow up in a country. I wanted her to grow up in the promise of this country. And I know we're far from being a perfect country. We are not a perfect country. We do have problems, but there's no other country in this world or through history that's like the United States of America. And I want to keep it that way. And it, my daughter's almost 30 years old, or she's 28, something like that. My grandson's 3.5, and I want them to have the best. I want them to have better than me. I want them to be able to express themselves, whether I like it or not. They still have the right to express themselves, and I want them to have that right. I want them to be protected from the government intruding on their lives, or the various things that we go through, or that we have uh, enumerated as freedoms from the government. And I see people that have gotten to the point where they want government to be the nanny state. They want the government to take care of them, and they want to take money away from people who've earned it, and they want all this other stuff, their entitlements, and that's not what we are. And I will do everything I can to keep that from happening. Just short of actually committing violence, unless it's committed upon me first for no reason. And I don't know how it's going to go, but
Yeah, I guess like a
I don't want to hurt.
self-defense.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt nobody. There's a lot of vets out here. A lot of us are carry firearms or have firearms. We don't want to hurt nobody. We love our country. We even even though we'll complain and we'll yell at and we'll scream and we'll act like we hate them. We do this for not only the people that love the country like us, but also, like I said, the people that hate this country but still live here. The ones that burn the flag, we still do this for them. And we pray that, at least I pray that one day they'll have an epiphany and come around and understand that there's no other place to go. There's no better place to go. You can have a few nice things over here, but you can't have free speech or over here, and you can't practice whatever religion you want, or you're here and the government can come in your house anytime they want. That's not what we are, and that's not what we should deserve. So
Absolutely. Well said.
thank you.
So when it comes to things like discipline or teamwork or leadership, are these things that you learned a lot in the military? And did the military experience you have had shape your view on these things at all?
Yeah. Uh, However, uh, leadership, I think, I guess because of the time I was in, and I'm not saying it's bad, but as a, I was the safety, I was the safety ministry leader at my church, and I had expectations. Yeah, you can commit to doing this. Uh, you need to do this. You volunteer. You have to put in some effort. You can't just come on Sunday and say, I'm part of the safety team and blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess I made some people mad because and it's funny because most of the guys were military, prior military, but I had to learn, I don't know the difference between leading civilians and leading uh, uh, active duty. My last time on a ship, I actually was in charge of second division. I went back to my first ship, and I was the senior uh, petty officer for second division, and we got our stuff done. We were going home every day at Liberty Call, and uh, we had our underway replenishments done, and our stuff laid out beforehand and all that stuff. And it wasn't just me; it was the whole uh, uh, division. It was the guys doing it, and I tried to take care of them as best I could. And but I can't. For some reason, I can't carry that to the outside. Uh, I appreciate teamwork though, and
Can you recall any life changing moments or realizations that you had during your service?
yeah. When we were in Portland for the Rose Festival, and we were waiting on the results of the E4 exam, and I didn't know if I was going to stay or not. One of the guys come running up to me and said I'd made E4, and that led me to that was my decision to stay in. And it's not like this huge epiphany, but it's for me it changed the course because I was going to get out, uh, or I was leaning towards getting out. You don't want to be a 5-year E3. Um, and had I not hurt my back and some other small things happened, I should have retired. So, that's I knew it was for me, and that's when I knew it was for me. So in the Navy, you have we got a different. We're one of the we have different. We have the similar but different ranks than the other branches. So ours aren't really ranks. Officers have ranks. We have rates, or we did back in the 80s. So you start out. Most guys start out as a seaman recruit. You make seaman apprentice within 6 months, and you make seaman within 6 months of that, and then you get designated. And then the next step is third class. Third class gives you a little more power. You're not actually getting as hands on as the guys below you. You're not chipping paint. You're not uh, hauling line when we pull into port, or when we're doing our underway replenishments. You're actually in charge a little bit of a few guys. Getting that step is an accomplishment, and I think this goes back to my stepfather, and the fact that he never thought I would get anywhere, and going from this and advancing to a position of I'm not going to say super importance, but it was kind of important. Uh, was you know uh, special to me, at least to me. You know,
No, I could definitely
yeah,
understand that. Did you ever have a particular mentor or a leader who inspired you during your service?
I had two of them actually. First one was when I went on my first ship to USS Kansas City. He was our first class bosun's mate. We called him Boats, VMN Hurlburt. And I first got on board. They put me in second division. I met him, and he was kind of a short, chunky guy, and he was funny until you pissed him off, and then you knew you pissed him off. One of the first things he did though is he called me to the fantail and he gave me his coffee cup. He said, "Go get me a cup of coffee." And he said, "Oh, by the way, if you ever wash this cup, I'm going to throw you over the side." And I believed him. But he kind of took me under his wing, and he showed me a lot of things pertaining to being a bosun's mate, unrepping knots, oh man, all kinds of stuff, rigging our stations, uh, things like that, and it gave me that drive to uh, do better all the time and to learn and I'm a hands-on learner. So he would actually well and I did it too when I was what they call leading petty officer. Uh, you grab the guys who are your best workers to get a job done because you know you get it done. So he would grab me. A lot of times he would take me out on the deck and he tell me what was going on and he'd point at a rig and say, how would you rig this, or what do you think, or what's the easiest way you think to do this, or things like that. And there was like one or two other people, and so it wasn't just me, but you know it was pretty cool. He would do that, and we would have or we would have division parties out on the base at one of the picnic areas, and we'd all get drunk and we'd go to he'd bring us all over to his house, and his wife would cook food for us, and I got I could have gotten into trouble a couple times, but I guess because I actually tried to pull my weight. He kind of covered for me. Once in the Philippines, I missed ship's movement when we moved from one pier to another. He just busted he made me do extra duty. Uh, so it's but he
Can
was
you
cool.
can you explain a little bit about missing movement and what happened? Why did you miss movement?
Well, even go from pier to pier. It's the especially my rate. Uh, we're again, we're the ones that tie the ship up. When we go to the pier, or when we leave the pier, we untie. We, you know, take the lines off the
Bollards, cleats.
cleats. Well, they're not actually cleats. Kind of like cleats though. A bollard is a single. Uh, uh, like it's skinny at the bottom and goes round fat up the top. That's a bollard. And then cleats are kind of like what you see, like a smaller cleats, like what you see on a sailboat. These were like two big old fat with a lip at the top, like a top that's a little bit bigger with a lip. And I can't remember what they're called. But anyways, we had to untie the ship from those. And then when we got to the next port, we had to tie them up. And a lot of times we had to do this by hand. We didn't have winches all the time to help us, get the lines tight.
So you'd have to pull them, huh?
Yeah, and you got a couple guys short, and we were in charge of three lines. I'm sorry, three. for our division, and after the ship. So it was kind of important we got it tight. Because a lot of times, like if depending on the port we were in, sometimes they'd keep our line secure until they got the front end swung out, and then we release our lines to be able to get underway. So, but it's just, and that's one of those things. It's just, it's also, they don't. You're supposed to be there. That's the thing. You're supposed to be on time. You're supposed to be there for uh, uh, muster and all that stuff. And what happened is I overslept. Um, but I was actually not drinking at the time. But my girlfriend, my Filipina girlfriend, we both woke up late. So
Wow.
yeah,
So it never happened again after that, though, huh?
no, nope. Yeah, he chewed my ass, made me do extra duty, and in the Philippines, it's like in the 90s, what like 98% humidity, and yeah, it's pretty miserable when you have to do extra duty.
How did your experiences in the military influence your outlook on life?
Wow, life's not fair. Life's short. It can end pretty quickly. The government sucks. I love my country, but the government sucks. When people screw you over in a heartbeat.
What would you consider to be your proudest achievements while in the military?
Make a second class bosun mate, getting qualified uh, with the special boat unit for special boat crewmen and weapons, earning the humanitarian award, being a leading petty officer as an E5 as a second class. That's about it. To me they're special, but they're not like spectacular for in the general sense. I'm not like one of those guys that went out and you know saved 50 people or whatever. So, but for me, those were the best achievements for me out there.
No, I think those are great achievements.
Yeah.
I congratulate you. Those are things to be proud of, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
My goal was to stand the wall, to be there, to do my job, to protect the country. Um, the awards are
Mhm.
like icing on a cake. uh, I'm not one of those guys that went out to get things. Like now they're handing out awards like candy, like maybe the what is it? Maybe a combination medal. Everybody gets one. It's like the trophy thing with everybody gets a trophy, participation awards. Uh, whatever I had, my sea service I had to earn by being on a ship. My marksman ribbons I had to earn by qualifying expert on the rifle and the pistol. Training and going to the Persian Gulf earned me my. I always forget what medal this was, but uh, crap, I can't remember. But nowadays, with the global war on terror, people can go like guys in the Navy go on a ship, go in the middle of or go close to the Persian Gulf, and they get the medal just for being there. Uh, and I guess kind of I got it the same way, sort of. But I was willing to actually be in the fight, not just sit off the coast. So I think I look at it a little different that way. And I'm not taking it away from anybody that actually does that. It's just it just seems a lot easier nowadays for people to get advancement or awards and things like that. So
Yeah, I could see that. Did your military background influence your career choices or your personal life after service?
my career choice, yeah, I did not ever want to touch a paintbrush again for anything more than I have to around my own home. I got so tired of painting. I did want to go merchant marines, but I never followed through on that. Uh, I, having 12 years experience, I think I could have done it, but I could never get anybody to help point me in the right direction. But yeah, the paint, like I said, I never wanted to touch a paintbrush. Unless it's touching up around my house or my apartment. For the most part, I lived in an apartment all my life until about 5 years ago.
Mhm.
So, what was the first time I picked up? It was after my mom passed away in '96. We were fixing up our house, uh, uh, the house that we lived in. I stayed with my mom when I got out. I paid rent. I worked. I went to school. She passed from ovarian cancer, so we were fixing up the house to sell it because there was three of us that had. My sister and I had 25% interest in the house, and my youngest brother had 50% because, uh, long story, but because of how our fathers, Deborah and I's, our father was the same one, and John's was different. So, uh, yeah, that was the first time, and it didn't last very long. Oh, yeah, I hated it. I hated the smell, and uh, it was tough.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting scenario. I guess painting is probably nonstop on the ships, huh? And so I could imagine it being something you're just over with after 12 years.
Well, the worst time was when I was on the Enterprise. I was part of what they call side cleaners. And the advantage of being in side cleaners was I never stood a watch. Um, that was one advantage. Uh, at the end of at the end of the workday at like, what was it, 1600, we quit work, and we had a nice bosun's locker, which was our workspace, and we had darts and TV and coffee maker and refrigerator. And we trade cleaning gear for ham and cheese and bread and all that stuff. So that was the best part. The worst part was every time we pulled into port, with the exception, especially our last cruise, with the exception of Perth, Australia, and Toulon, France, we were painting or directing the painting of the sides of the ship. I think that's the one that did it for me because our skipper wanted those sides painted every time. And the other part of that was part of the time I was supply petty officer. So I had to make sure that we acquired enough two-part paint to do this. And yeah, it I got so tired of paint just in that 2 years I was on the Enterprise. On the Kansas City, we painted a lot, but we also did a lot more underway replenishments or working on the rigs or slushing the wire lines or just all that kind of stuff, maintenance on equipment like that. So,
What further education or training did you pursue after leaving the military?
some college. My mom got sick, and I just couldn't. I couldn't stay. I Watching my mom pass away from ovarian cancer was tough. And for about a year, I was pretty much. I was working at Circle K. I actually became a manager, but I was pretty useless. Other than, I mean, I went in and did my job, and that was it. I couldn't do my job and then do homework and all that stuff. About a year later, I learned how to drive a truck over the road, and then I learned how to drive a concrete truck when I got fired from the last trucking company out of Oklahoma, Tulsa. And I drove a concrete truck in Round Rock, Texas. That's about it. I mean, I've wanted to go back to school. I wanted to do gunsmithing, but I was trying to get the VA to cover it. And that's a long story that they didn't want to because of my rate, how my rating was with the VA. And now I just try to help vets whenever I can, talk to them. And all my experience of going through the VA, I try to point them in the right direction that I know of, or I think is the right direction. So,
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of great communities out there, and I see a lot of veterans helping each other out, especially this day and age. It seems like there's a lot of hurdles and challenges with veterans
oh my
with life
God,
after the military.
there are. I was in physical therapy at a physical therapy place that had a pool, and there were two Marines in there doing. They'd been over, fought. One fought. One was a mute. Um, and we were talking, and I was trying to make sure that they got to the VA and didn't quit, because that's one thing the VA wants you to do is they want you to quit. They want you to give up on your rating and just go, fuck it, I quit. Not, but they just want you to give up. And I learned, because the way my rating, my stuff happened, you don't quit. You don't give up. You don't let the VA win. And it might be a fight. It might be a long time, but you don't let them win. And they're gonna kind of win, but you're still gonna come out ahead. And I waited too long to get back in the VA system. I got out in '92, went to the VA in Corpus Christi. They treated me like shit. I never went back. And then I moved to New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I'm at now. My stepmother was living here with my dad and my youngest brother, and she pushed me to get back in the VA system. And that was in 2009. And I lost all that money because I didn't get in the system. I could have gotten health care for all those years and everything. So, I mean, it's important. Don't quit. Get in the system. Fight it. It's what we earned. It's ours, not the government's. It's ours. We need to tell them to piss off and treat us the way we deserve to be treated. That's the best I can do to keep it kind of clean.
No, it's not a problem. Totally understand. No problem at all. No, it's reasonable. It's a very serious thing.
Yeah.
I want to backtrack a little bit
Okay.
about your time in service, and I wanted to ask you about any unexplained experiences. Did you experience anything unexplainable or strange during your service? Such as a UFO sighting or just strange lights or this kind of thing. I know there's a lot of reports out there. Did you experience any of these types of events?
I wish I could say I did, because I have. I mean, I believe in stuff like that. Uh, but the only thing, I mean, I saw satellites. I'd be up on the old fort level, and with another buddy of mine, we'd just sit up there and shoot the breeze. And at night when we were off, and watch the skies, because it'd be so dark. Never, and I was hoping to see stuff. It never did. Oh, can I go back? Can I go back to something memorable though?
Absolutely.
Well, we were down. We were heading towards Perth, Australia. So once you cross over the equator, you're in the southern hemisphere. And one of the big things in the southern hemisphere is the Southern Cross. The cross that Crosby, Stills, and Nash sing about. And I, I wasn't even looking for it because I didn't even think about it. But we were doing an unrep. We finished. We were clearing up the deck. They shut down all the lights. I looked up for some reason, and boom, it was there, and it was friggin' amazing. I've never seen the Northern Lights, and I've been up to the Arctic Circle, things like that, but I got to see the Southern Cross, and it was just amazing. That and the sunrises and sunsets out at sea when the water's smooth are some of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. So that's those brought joy to my heart.
Phenomenal. Yeah, the sky has to just be absolutely astonishing out there in the open
Oh my
ocean.
God, it is. When we're underway,
Hmm.
we're doing 10 knots through the ocean and it's smooth or fairly smooth, and we would have that bioluminescent in the wake, and it seemed like it would dance, um, almost like it's like watching dolphins play alongside, and that's another thing I got to watch is and baby dolphins too. But it's like it's at night. It's just a cool thing to watch. Those are the things that kind of it really hit home with me and why I love the ocean.
I wanted to ask you about seeing any strange phenomenon because in just a few days or weeks rather, they are having a second House committee oversight testimony being given
Huh.
on these unidentified aerial phenomena. And it's just coming out today, actually. A couple of the people that'll be there and attendees, you're going to have, again, David Grush, who's a USAF retired whistleblower, and retired Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, which is interesting. And other witnesses' names have yet to be released. I think they're trying to protect these witnesses, but it seems like there's some interesting information that's trickling out regarding this phenomenon that's reported by people in the Navy
Right.
and also people, jet pilots and stuff like that. So it's definitely an interesting topic. I always want to ask about.
Uh, but like I said, I had hoped to. That's interesting though. But there's a lot of I've when all this first came out, there was quite a few people poo pooing it because they think it's a distraction. I don't at this point if they're doing it again this soon after the election. I don't think it's a distraction like everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, the thing I always say when I hear a lot of times people say things are distractions, um, I have a lot of opinions on that. One of them being, yeah, I don't think there's as many distractions as we might think. I think what we need to do is walk and chew bubblegum because there's just a lot going on and sometimes they overlap. If not all the time, everything's overlapping is kind of how I look at it.
Right.
So we pick our battles, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you been involved in any veteran organizations or support networks after your service?
Yeah. I belong to VFW. I don't. That's the only thing. I was American Legion for about a year. I never went to meetings because they conflicted with uh, the Republican Party here where I live, and I couldn't get the Republican Party to change the night they had their monthly meeting. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but yeah, those two organizations were about it.
Yeah. Okay. You
Yeah,
said that you dedicate some of your time to having discussions with other veterans. Are there any other ways in which you give back to the veteran community?
for a while there, I was doing. I was helping with the food drives at the VFW, marching in the parade. Like we got the Veterans Day parade coming up this Saturday, and I'll be doing that one. I'll be handing out poppies, and I'm not one of those. I'm not real big on some of the stuff that we, the veteran that like the VFW does, and like I said, I was only in the American Legion for a year, but my big thing is the whenever I run into a veteran, I don't care where it's at, try to talk to them. I wish I could do more, but because of health issues here lately, it's getting a lot more difficult.
What advice might you give to other veterans who are transitioning to civilian life?
I don't care how you feel when you get out. If you cut your finger and you went to sick bay or med call, whatever you call it, go register with the VA. Make sure that stuff's in your medical records. get a complete copy of your medical records when you get out. Get a complete copy of your regular records and your DD 214. And if you've been in for like 8 years or however, like the 2 or 4 or whatever, if you've been re-enlisted a couple times, get all your DD 214s. Register with the VA immediately. Don't wait. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't let them beat you. There's people out there that's willing to help, and it's not always an organization. A lot of the organizations are okay, and a lot of the vets are okay, but you just got to find that one that clicks with you and is willing to fight with you to get this stuff taken care of. We need to help each other. We need to stay brotherhood and sisterhood. We got too many of them out on the street. We don't want any more. We got too many putting a gun in their mouth. We don't need that anymore. You guys are too important. You did too much. You were too strong. Breathe and find some help.
Great advice. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. Oh, and I don't know why I forgot this. My dad retired in 1984, January of 84. My brother was born, and anyways, blah, blah, blah. At his retirement ceremony in Crystal City, I flew from San Francisco, and I got to pipe my father over the side as a BMSN. In 1988, while stationed at Treasure Island Base Police, I re-enlisted. And my dad came out and re-enlisted me as he was a Navy captain. He was eligible to do that. I didn't think about it, but I think that I got so much going on in my head, but I think that is the most special thing that happened. And the most special thing.
Wow. Do you want to explain it a little bit more in a little bit more detail?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. That sounds phenomenal.
So when a senior officer retires, or a senior enlisted, like a chief, or this is for the Navy, when a chief or senior chief, or sometimes first class, just depending, or a master chief retire. When they depart, they go through the ceremony. They get whatever awards they get left, that they're giving them at the end of their service, and their paperwork and all that stuff, or their what do they call them, like their certificates, right? Once they're done, all the pomp and circumstance there, as they leave, like my dad's case, he left the building. So they got the officers, his officers, friends, stand in line, and they ring the bell. And as he's walking down this line of people, or an officer walks down that line of people, the bosun mate pipes, oh man, I know I can hear it in my head. I can't remember the name. But anyways, they pipe them over the side is what it's called. And while so you got a pipe and you got a hand salute at the same time. And to do that is pretty special, especially when it's somebody you look up to on a ship, or if you got a skipper, that's pretty cool, and you get to do that when they depart or when they retire. It's pretty cool. But to do it for your father, that was really special, and especially he retired after 34 years. He got the Legion of Merit at his retirement, and just watching him, walk away from the Navy, sort of, because I think when you retire, you kind of walking away, but you're not fully walking away. But yeah, I piped him over the side, and it was pretty special. And I had no idea I was going to have him re-enlist me 4 years later. So I'm at Treasure Island, and dad's dad, my stepmother, and my brother living here in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I decided I'm going to reenlist. They'd already extended me, and so I'm getting ready to reenlist after that extension. Uh, and I called my dad up, and I talked to my command, and I said, uh, "Can my dad reenlist me? He's a Navy officer, retired." And they said, "Sure." So I called him up, and I said, "Dad, would you do me the honor of coming out here and reenlisting me?" And he said, "Yeah." And so him, my stepmother, my brother caught a train to San Francisco and well, in the area there somewhere. I don't remember where it stopped for them to get off, and he came out to Treasure Island and he swore me in for my third enlistment.
Wow.
And, yeah,
Phenomenal. Wow.
yeah.
That's too cool.
I wish I had pictures. Yeah. My dad and I had a weird relationship, but he was an inspiring man to certain, for me. We butted heads big time, but you know, well, if this helps one vet or helps one civilian understand what we actually go through, then I've accomplished something. Well, I think Tuesday night was kind of a catalyst to get us going back in the right direction. Hopefully, especially if Trump will step in and get rid of some of the people like Powell and or not Powell, but uh, Austin or whoever's those kind of people. So the ones that are turning us into an experiment versus our military.
I really appreciate your time, Roger, and I want to thank you for serving and for sitting down and sharing your experiences today.
Well, the serving was an honor and a privilege, and talking with you was an honor, Vince. Thank you for what you're doing for us, and it's wonderful what Chandra's doing for us too.
It's my pleasure and Shonda's pleasure with Veterans Memorial News, of
Right.
course. And
Yep.
thanks again.
For veterans resources or to share your story, visit vmnews.us.